global dominance of your selected market niche, nothing less. That is what I'm aiming for. I want to be absolutely dominating the category globally in the selected market niche we choose. It's been formed and shaped throughout the last 4 decades through players such as Nielsen, Ipsos, Kantar, Bain, McKinsey. So what we've proven so far is we can get companies to 7-figure deal sizes within a very short time frame, being remote in Europe, Denmark.
And what scares you about this journey?
Nothing.
Nothing.
I fucking love it. It feels like day zero is so important in this moment of time. And if you cannot guardrail your culture and shape that clear enough, you need a team and you need to be very aligned on that. And here we are. We're the leader, global leader within our category, and we're just getting started. I don't want to be our competition. You're up against a very good group of people and a culture that you're going to have a hard time competing against.
What do you think are the most important next steps to win in America?
2 or 3 things pops up.
I was wondering if we can, so like the way that I see the market, and maybe you can help me kind of clarify it, is like on 2 sides, let's say, when it comes to competition. On one hand, you have the incumbents, and on the other hand, you have, let's say, the new tech players that came into the market. Could you talk a little bit about, let's say, the incumbents, who they are?
Sure. In the category of market research, it's been formed and shaped throughout the last 4 decades through players such as Nielsen, Ipsos, Kantar, Bain, McKinsey. That either kind of like a purist that does market research only, or agency sides, boutiques that does insights and blend it into their proposition. So that's sort of like the 2 moats on the agency side that has been having very good times the last 40 years within this category. They have been very good at industrializing and commercializing insights as a vehicle for commercial uptake, and has also found its spots of most impact: brand decisions, innovation decisions, marketing decisions. All decisions that are incredibly important for the GDM performance of the enterprise.
When you say GDM, what's a GDM?
Go-to-market performance of the enterprise,
yeah.
Which typically are a subset of marketing, brand, and sales. And every enterprise will look at that dollar return on GDM spend. And that is sort of like a matrix that are incredibly important for the health of the enterprise at the largest level.
So they look at the GTM spend and what's the ROI, and they would look at revenue.
Yeah.
And is it true, like I remember like this cliche saying where you never get fired for hiring IBM, and this used to be like, I don't know, 20 years ago. Is it the same that for the Fortune 500, you never get fired for hiring a McKinsey or a Nielsen or a Ipsos?
Yeah, I think that's true.
So then like for them, they would just spend all this money, and if I remember correctly, it's around $180 billion a year.
I think depending on how you slice, market research would be like 120 to 160.
Right, and then like that kind of goes for the GTM, and then they measure ROI.
So that's not what they do, but they are giving research for the performance of the go-to-market engine. So how good are our campaigns developed? Is there creative resonance? How strong is our brand compared to the category? How good is this creative? How sizable are this demand space that you can innovate in or capture? So they've been very good at creating research applications that, when done right, brings in insights for the enterprise to ultimately lead the category through the idea that they take better decisions and build stronger assets for the consumer. I think if you go to some of the most iconic companies, one of their secret sources are that they are simply better at understanding culture, context, consumers, and because of that, and translating that to building products and brand and communication, they can charge a premium on the same supply chain as an alternative. Shoes, it costs the same to produce. Why can somebody charge 10x the price for that good? It's because they understand the cultural relevance, how to communicate it, how to design it, how to collab that with influencers and athletes, and so on. So all of that is not just because it happens kind of like magical. It happens because these companies understands that understanding consumers in the most important applications of the growth vehicle of the enterprise, we need to be best. And so all of these players that I mentioned before has been very good at being the enabler for commercial growth for 40 decades. And that's why they've been so massive and still are massive success.
Like how big they are? Can you give us a sense?
Yeah, so some of them are public, so you can look at it. But if you look at the industry players, Kantar, Ipsos, Ipsos is public. I think they have 2.5, 3 billion of yearly revenue. And there's like a handful of them. And then you have the McKinseys, the Bains. I cannot even size how big they are, but insights is a very ingrained part of their proposition. So you get the math.
Right. And like when you look at, let's say, Coca-Cola or this type of brands that understand how important it is to understand consumer, because if you understand consumer, you understand culture, and then you can charge a premium. What is the workflow for this Incumbents when one of these brands are kind of using them?
Yeah, so essentially it's connected through the entire product life cycle. So an enterprise would typically be very focused on the demand spaces it should place its products in. You can say the culture and context. Give an example, a beverage brand selling alcoholic drinks would probably look for moments of socializing, moments after work, refreshing times. So you will end up in sort of like situations in the consumer's life where we can be relevant. You could call that a demand space. And the consumer's preferences within that demand space changes faster than ever. I'm sitting drinking electrolytes today. Last month it was matcha. So my windows of consumption and what drives that will change all the time. And the ability for the brand to understand that, connect it to culture, connect that to needs, and put out an attractive portfolio of products and services is what ultimately drives the growth. This is just one example, but that's innovation. When you then have products and services innovated, so it's on the shelf, what you then want to do with that portfolio is you want to market it. You want to start sell it. And here you focus on brand, here you focus on marketing, here you focus on distribution, retail, get it out to consumer. And here there's a lot of insights you can build as well to be more effective, be more relevant, be more resonant for your consumers. The historic brands, they're not designed and they have not stayed throughout time by coincidence. It's simply because they have secret insights that they unlock to build connections and relationships in much more subconscious matters with the consumers. And we all have seen amazing campaigns and creatives. They rarely happen in isolation and just for a magical moment. Sure, it can be lucky, but the brands we're talking about has consistently done that over a very long duration. And here insights and understanding unlocks that as well. This is why you have such a huge industry. There is no longer any doubt in any CEO that understanding consumers and customers better than competition is probably the most premium asset you can have as a competitive modality. So here we are.
And probably like more so now in the age of AI, right? Because that's probably the only thing that will matter as we discuss, where you have like a lot of autonomy in probably other parts of your business. This is something that will stay true, this year, next year, and probably for the next 50 years if AGI is not taking over.
I think you are touching on a very important truth, which is if you go 10 years back, you could be very competitive if you were good at supply chain. You were simply very good at putting products fast to market and start marketing them. If you go to the average beauty leader of a beauty category today, what they will tell you, and that's also very public available, so I'm not sharing anything that I cannot share, but if you look at the amount of competition, let's say in one category of beauty, could be makeup or mascara or whatnot, the average leader gets 8,000 competitors monthly in one market, Indonesia. So the constraint of bringing new product that looks like $1 million to market is compressed. And the cost of doing so is close to zero. So the moat of being incredibly well equipped on that part are starting to be, I wouldn't say it's not kind of like a moat, but that moat are slowly diminishing. If you can go to another moat, we were simply better at doing creative or producing the goods that were part of the GDM. That is compressing too. So every mode of actually like innovating and putting to market and distributing, the costs are going down, the level of entrance is going up, and the level of autonomous within this are also elevating. So essentially what you have left, I think, are understanding of your market, your segments, what resonates, in which context, which cultures. The ability to do that and put that on a formula and embed it into the new motion of the enterprise is going to be the most important mode of the future enterprise.
And when you look at this incumbents that you just mentioned, what do you think they're just extremely good at and entrenched in, and what's their weakness?
What they're very, very good at is back to what you're saying. They have earned a position to influence because they, over a 40-year decade, has proven that if you buy our insights and get them embedded in important commercial applications, you simply will perform better. So there is a logic between I'm getting your insights in for a brand decision or a category decision or a marketing decision, and my material will start to perform better. That's why it's so huge. That's why it still hasn't been touched. Market research has never gone through digitalization. Many industries, through the rise of digitalization, were starting to redistribute a lot of its TAM to tools and self-serve and digital assets. Rarely so in market research. What you really are looking for are that human-led, human quality crafted insights that makes a difference in the application.
And when you were looking at this incumbents, and also you were telling us that, you went to Dun & Co. and then you entered more like the user tribe, right? Like, what did give you the courage to, let's say, go and compete against these entrenched players that have the market credibility across, let's say, 40 years, and where did you see the opening?
So when I was entering Kunde & Co. and I was working as a consultant, I was sitting with a job that essentially were to build the campaign or the product launch or the brand positioning of the enterprise. My job were then to include insights into that service. And what I found were that the enterprise were starting to behave very differently and taking different decisions than my ability to deliver insights into it. They worked faster. They needed different insights at different times. And so typically it would end up with, we just run on gut or we run without because it's too rigid to bring in great insights into the decisions. So you end up building and taking a lot of decisions for the enterprise, with the enterprise, without any customer understanding injected. Take back the points I said about the average lifetime of performance as a leader is now down to, but it's 7 or 8 years, I think. Rapidly going down from like a very secure spot. This could be pretty explosive if we don't start to match understanding of the markets and segments we want to be something for with what we build.
Absolutely. And also you have this, like a decade also, we touched a little bit on the synthetic data. So probably you have a lot of data that if you want to build synthetic data, probably like you're one of the best positioned to try to do something in the area. Now, if we touch, let's say, on the new entrants in the market, I know that there are some competitors. They're backed by Sequoia Capital and Ribbit Capital. You have been in the market a little bit longer, but how do you see them?
I keep a mindset, first of all, that I don't think this market has settled yet. I think there'll be many new entrants because the TAM and whatever we can serve of that TAM is so huge that there will be a new entrance coming. That's like one. The second one is I celebrate new minds, skilled minds, and capabilities that for the first time has the courage to look at old problems with new eyes. And they are very skilled. And they are backed by serious firms that want to go all in, solving old problems in new ways. I think everybody should welcome that because it lifts the intensity and density of innovation within the community or the market. So I have a very welcoming approach to it.
And also, like you mentioned that, like, how big is the research budget, which is like between $120 billion to $150 billion a year. And that's the research budget. Like, do you see a future where these kind of eats from labor as well?
I see many things. I see a redistribution of spend in the total sum of this application or this market. It will be heavily redistributed in what are humans doing and what are AI doing. It will be a dramatic increase and expansion of the category because, like any other asset, when cost and time goes down and substance remain on human par, you suddenly have so many more applications to innovate this asset class in. So you're going to see a wave of democratization of the ability to drive understanding in many new functions, in many new areas that you simply couldn't do before because it was too slow or it was too costly. I think you're going to see a new market being shaped and formed by the emergent capability of AI in market research.
I was talking with Paul Murphy from Lightspeed. He was with Lightspeed. I don't think he's with Lightspeed. He just posted on LinkedIn a couple of weeks ago that he left, and he said something that kind of stuck with me, which is previous, let's say, digital transformations that will reach enterprises because, let's say, mobile or like a new technology, it will never reach the SMBs because they wouldn't have the budget. But now, because all the cost is going down, a lot of the things that were only available for the enterprises are also available for mid-market or small market companies, which I guess is what you're getting to here.
I love that. That's like one motion. That's like going down in market. You suddenly have much more time. The other thing are just within the enterprise, this research budget we're talking about is for the research function. As the capability starts to emerge as something everybody can work with. Take like Excel. That started as hard code finance Linux. Yeah. It got an interface, it got a composure that allowed it to democratize. So AI will be the biggest catalyst for democratization of special domain competences, now blending itself with other functions. So you have two trends that are super interesting here. You have one, which is the total market and how much can you address from like size of company. But the other angle is like which functions can you now start to address with this capability where there is a positive ROI on deployment. I could easily see marketing starting this themselves. I could easily see product. I could easily see HR. I could easily see innovation. Why not? It's so ingrained in the application you serve for the enterprise. So of course it's going to be merging and embedded into your workflow. So you have two really interesting thematics here that I am very energized and interested in within the domain.
And in this like fast evolving market, what do you think are the moves to stay competitive, to, set some flags that you're not displaced, that you can actually dominate? I actually did this AI research competitive analysis with GetWhy as your company and the other new entrants. And actually, GetWhy came as the leading in the market. How do you, like, what are the moves that you want to remain, given that this market is just evolving so fast and changing?
For me, it's culture and it's leadership. It starts there. I talked a bit earlier around how I over-index and empathize effort and input over outcomes. It's more than ever so important. I think it's Jensen on NVIDIA that has a say, which is, I'm writing with an internal narrative that in 30 days we could be irrelevant. Imagine the level of intensity he's putting and vulnerability he's putting to the entire organization, saying that in 30 days we could be irrelevant. It's such an inspiring way of shaping the operational intensity of the company. So back to my point about, I think, over-indexing cultural aspects such as input or effort is because essentially what it's all about is operational intensity. How much can you compound and get out of that intensity? And how agile and flexible and dynamic can that be? Because the world in 6 months for sure are not going to look the same as it is today.
And how do you instill that in your company? I mean, you've been an athlete, you have this, obsessive focus, and how do you instill that in your culture? This intensity, this maybe urgency?
I would point three things. One are the way your leaders behave and acts in this moment of time is very, very, it's very important to shape the culture. Just before I got in today, I was launching on our Slack, like, hey, I just sat with a client and we used like 5 days to get into the mod, and here is the prototype MVP version of where I think it's gonna head. When you do that first time and you say, it's not done, and maybe it's wrong, but we just did it, and I think it's an important signal that everybody should capture in the way we build. You need to lift that vulnerability and insecurity, and there is like a good percentage chance that this is not right, but I'm very transparent and I'm leading the builder mentality. Everybody is builders. Second, who do you bring in? Is so important in this moment of time, and if you cannot guardrail your culture and shape that clear enough in the entrance, you're going to pay back a huge bill. Because in these moments of time, you need a team and you need to be very aligned on that. And then I would say the last one is maybe a bit softer, but that is lead with heart. Because you need to be able to get acceptance for a greater amount of failures and insecurities and intensity levels than what you were used to. So I would point at these three as fundamentals to shape the culture. Leader needs to behave and act much more than they did previously, aligned with your values and where you're heading. You need to be humanizing yourself and lead with the heart, because you need more velocity, you need more bandwidth to actually lead.
Yeah, and I guess like when you're leading with the heart, people are also much more willing to give more. Actually, I think Dan Ariely has a great book. It's called Predictably Irrational. So they did a test. So whenever they will tell people that it's something like mission-driven or you need to lead with a heart, or they will actually bring more of themselves than if they say, okay, this is a task, do it in 4 hours and you're done, and you kind of, you get your paycheck and you leave. Like, people are just not so much all into the mission. So I think if you have leaders that lead with a heart, then it's a different type of commitment that comes with it.
100%. And you take that for granted in sport. And as an athlete, that was kind of like a constant. If you had a coach or you were on pitch and you were playing in mind but not hard, you didn't get any follow, you didn't get any support, you lost on Sundays. So you in sports, you take for granted that you are all in with full heart every fucking day. I think corporate and building companies, there is a tendency that you still lead with mind rather than with heart. But this moment in time, with this uncertainty and level of innovation coming, you need abundance, you need acceptance, you need a broader playing field to get people connected. So I think leading with heart is incredibly important.
Yeah, also there's this other book which is called like 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, and they talk about, just going back to the builder mentality. So at the first layer, just people, teammates need to trust each other, but they don't need to be afraid to be wrong, which I think this is something that you were kind of alluding to. Everyone should see, and the leader should lead by example. Hey, I've tried this. It might work, it might not work, but that kind of sends the signals that everyone in the company can use their creativity, their intelligence to try stuff, because if it doesn't work, it's okay.
I almost take that as a thing. Like, if you don't have that, let me put it that way, what are you doing? Yeah. You have no competitive mode if you cannot foster such a culture. Innovation and builder mentality is for everyone. The young, new entrants to the CEO. So that, I think that's the new normal, at least in the scale we are in and the majority we are in. I would also say that leadership for me has also been an evolution where normally when I say behavior or how we act, we're typically what we did and what we said. What we also need to be very aware about, and we've been very vocal around that the last year or so, is also your non-verbatims. When are you keeping yourself quiet? What are you not talking about? You see a behavior, you see something, but you accept now to not confront it or discuss it. That also creates culture. So it's just very important in the totality of leadership that you accept is not only what you do and your verbatims, is as much your non-verbals. And when do you decide to keep quiet?
And how do you actually implement this? Like, do you talk in your leadership team? This is important. This is what we need to do. Everything that we discussed right now. Is it more that the people that you bring in is like, this is almost like an unwritten rule, everyone understands this? Like, how do you go about it?
It's super hard to formalize. So what we do, we have 2 huddle ups in management. That's sort of like my room every Monday, every Friday, where it's, imagine kind of like a football team or a squad huddling up for an hour or 1.5 hours. That's sort of like, you just need to do that to keep the intensity. Until now, I've met every single entrance of the company at define. I'm not here to assess your skills. I'm here to assess your cultural fit.
Yeah.
As we take next leap of globalization and we want to move forward, we are working on how to codify that. But just to say, until now, like, I've met every single individual with one purpose, which is to make sure there's a cultural fit.
Do you have a favorite question that you ask? How do you determine that? Do you look at attitude? You hear nowadays so much that it's all about the attitude, not so much about skills, because skills can always be learned, but attitude, maybe it's a little bit harder.
I love to be curious about non-work, like person, like because I'm not here to screen for your professionals. So already there I see how they react as human beings with character. So I immediately are not in the skills, because that has been approved. But many people, they have a hard time switching that persona with who they are, and I'm only interested in who they are. And then I'm very interested in their proudest achievements, their darkest times. So there'll be things that will, try to go with a lot of humility and human kind of like approach to it. But how they define their successes and how they define their defeats tells me a lot about the character of the person.
Absolutely, and I think, like, also if you see that they're not intellectually honest about their defeats, that tells you quite a lot, right? If someone cannot talk about their defeats, that means probably that intellectually honesty doesn't transfer also to the job. So it might be that they don't know to do something, or they should communicate earlier to do something, but they're just not honest about it.
It's so important. So a way as I normally would ask is like, hey, if I took your former colleagues and put them into one pool, like what would be the 3 positive things, right? So now they need to externalize, look at themselves from the outside, and like there's all many good things. Here I already also will distinct, is it professional or is it human? I am only interested in the human. So here you get a good, but then when they're done, I will ask on the other side of the coin. So what is your potentials of development? Where are you weak? What do I need to know when you come in, so I can make you the best version of yourself, put in the texture around you for you to thrive. For that, I need to know your vulnerabilities. I need to know your limitations. It's with any good football team. It's unspoken, but it's so connected that I was a right winger or left winger, but I felt my right fullback on my central back. We all knew their strength and their weaknesses, and it was in moments, in seconds. You needed to cover for that. There was a high ball. They played deep balls. Now we needed to pressure. So it's not only your position, but it's also to cover your mates and your colleagues with where they're weak. So if we cannot be vulnerable with where we have limitations or where we're weak, how can you make synergies and compounding effects in a team dynamic? I think it's so important. And very few people are aware about this.
Absolutely. And I guess like also by the way that you talk about it, you took a lot, right, from football, and you are kind of applying to the team to have this type of cohesion, but probably also autonomy. So then everyone can do what they're very good at, but at the same time, they're a good team player.
I have only one job, essentially, besides setting direction, and that comes very natural for me. That is to put the people of GetWhy in their best position of their career in this moment of time.
Let's talk a little bit about winning in America from the edge of Europe. We're right now in beautiful Copenhagen. How important do you think is to remain a category leader or to dominate a category leader position is to win in America?
So in market research, the predominant part of spend is in North America.
Do you know like what's the split? Like let's say US, Europe?
I would guess it's 60 or 70% of the market. At least our growth patterns is much more aggressive in that market. And when we look at year-over-year growth, even quarter-over-quarter growth, the market is leaning in a bit harder. They have an innovator builder mindset, so they will be ahead of the curve in terms of innovation. So I think like US, North America is a given if you want to be the category leader within this. So you need to consider how and when you're going to do that.
And what have you proven so far in your plan or in the way that you see the market, even though it's kind of moving very fast? Like what have you proven so far? And what are the next steps for the next 12 months? Because anything probably, even like anything beyond like 6 months is like too of a long time, like in this market.
Yeah.
But what do you feel you've proven so far, and what do you still want to prove in the next 6 months? What's the plan?
So it's actually, the formula is very simple. Can I prove a handful of one handful or two handful of enterprise clients that within the first year or two are consuming a 7-figure or 8-figure deal? We are there. I'm gonna go all in. We are very far in that curve now.
What do you mean consuming?
So annual recurring revenue, what are
From one, right.
So can we get an enterprise that we meet to get to a 7-figure spend in a duration of 12 months?
Right.
And I have not only one or two, but I start to have texture of 5 to 10.
Nice.
That's sort of like my indicator that now we're ready to go all in. So what we've proven so far is we can get companies to 7-figure deal sizes within a very short time frame, being remote in Europe, Denmark.
Yeah.
So I have great confidence that when the moats and the structures and the muscles are starting to repeat, we can hit it harder, and I can hit it with more confidence. And that's sort of like the story and the muscles and structures we're building the last bits and bytes of as we speak.
So it's like you are very close to throw the punch, if I understand correctly.
We're so close that we just put 2 people to Austin. We have people in Vancouver, New York, and we are over there every month for events, client side. So we are very active in the market, but I have great respect for a permanent establishment with like a big domicile, and you start building headquarters. It also have implications for when do I kind of like start to shift over my mindset, my family, everything. So I've just seen so many that does it half-hearted and with not sufficient resources or time to back it up. So my thesis is I want to be very robust, and I think we are much more robust and maybe conservative than others. But when we do it all in, and that's sort of like where we mentally are coping ourselves towards right now.
And I would love to talk a little bit about the eBay story. You said that it's public, and I would like to talk a little bit about the numbers. What actually changed inside that company because of GetWhy?
So I think there's 2 chapters to this that are important. Back to my 10% or 10x story. Everybody is right now obsessed and interested in AI, predominant in market research for an efficiency narrative. How much faster, how much more can we save without compromising the substance of the insights with this new capability? That's the current wave everybody will be riding. At eBay numbers, what's publicly shared is they have 7 figures savings within 18 months. They're 10 times faster in their time to insights. And they're doing it in a quality that creates more resonance for the consumer than before. So now you sit with a capability inside eBay that now can start to be put in motion on innovation, marketing, product, in the categories that eBay want to compete in. Collectibles, fashion, automotive, whatnot. But let me finish first chapter. So here you will measure it by its effects. How much faster, how much more cost effective is this new capability performing? What happens now is super interesting. The leaders of eBay can now say, this is very interesting. Let me redistribute more capital and resources into this capability, and my savings and efficiency is going to be greater. And I can take that saving and put it to margins or put it to the CFO's table and say, look what I've done. I've saved us capital and resources, and our EBITDA and margins improves. That's the 10%ers. What eBay has done all the way up for Jamie, the CEO, has been very vocal on the AI transformation. He will be out speaking public on every earning calls around this is a full stop transformation, which essentially means they have a 10x mindset. They want to take everything they are conducting from this capability to reimagine and reinvent the future of e-commerce. So they're driving a capability with the purpose of driving commercial performance of the enterprise, not to drive the 10% or the 40% efficiency.
And how do you position yourself? I like kind of like from the 10%ers to the 10xer. What do you need there? What type of integrations that you become the infrastructure through which the insights flows to every type of department?
Yeah. So if we say the first chapter is to build a capability within the company that can serve the matters of decisions better than before. What happens now is that insights are timely, relevant for functions and applications. So what will happen, and that's also in the white paper and the documented case, is that in itself, it's not really moving market shares or any type of commercial uplift. It needs to go through functions and applications to start driving outcomes. So second chapter, which is where we documented 2-digit growth by the focus, of course, together with the entirety of eBay, but the intensity we had in certain categories across the spectrum of marketing and innovation and product now started to perform very, very well. That is, of course, the orientation you want to have every leader to have and go in with this mindset of a full-blown rebuild of the stack and how they support that function in driving commercial uptake. For me, that's the full story. And we're still very early. But from now on, within this architecture, we just need to prove more and more and more, because innovation and new shiny object and just doing things for doing things, I'm not a big fan of it. It's very hard to digest for the enterprise with all the optionality. The end destination are a competitive edge and a competitive mode and drive commercial uptake in the categories of selection through new capabilities and powers in your operations. And that is the first case that I'm aware about where AI within a year or 18 months are driving so significant results. And we've known this for quite some time. So of course we have applied a lot of that framework and mentality to a lot of other enterprises that now comes and showing exactly the same signs as we saw early. So I'm very optimistic, but it requires leadership and a culture that have more abundance than just efficiency. They need to reinvest that to drive outcomes.
But do you think it's easier, let's say, to sell the efficiency to begin with because it's just top of the agenda, you can show the numbers very easily, but then slowly after they see, you know, the gains, they can plan strategically for a little bit more broader integration?
I think I meet a lot of executive with intent from beginning that know it's going to be hard for me in my current situation to go knock on the door and the CEO and CFO and ask for more budget. So a smart leader and executive would say, I need a cost neutral transformation. So I need to take out cost of ineffectiveness and redistribute that spend to innovation.
Right.
And rebuild my team and capabilities to serve the enterprise. So I think it's very smart leaders that goes with intent. I tend to see less smart ways and successful transformation where it starts with efficiencies.
We discussed quite a lot about, you know, discipline and being an athlete and everything that you learn about when you have that type of mindset, and also creating a new world in which you kind of plant a flag. What do you think are the most important next steps to win in America? Or what are the most important steps that you need to be disciplined about?
2 or 3 things pops up. I think to transmit the culture and leadership style we have proven here in Copenhagen to a US market is going to be critical. And it requires a well thought out plan to do that. I think that's very important for me. Second, I think the number one asset you can have right now is who are you building relationships to within the enterprise and keeping yourself relevant and in a position where you've hard earned the ability to influence is probably one of the most competitive moats you can have today. I would highlight these 2 things as 2 critical things. The third one, which I am starting to consider together with the current board of investors, is of course, how aggressive are we going to be from an investment point of view? And it could very easily be that it's going to be through the next round of financing, however that might come, that we are including a very ambitious North America.
And what does this ambition look like? Like, what do you think it's possible, ambitiously, but possible revenue in the next 3 years? Let's say you, like everything, so you find more 10%er that go into the 10xer, and let's say you've proven the consumption on 20 companies in the US. What do you think the revenue might look like in, let's say, 2-3 years?
My mindset is wired a bit differently. We have an investor and a great advisor to the company called Professor Ken Morse. He was one of the founding members of MIT Entrepreneurship, and he was the, I think, first member of HubSpot's board.
Oh, wow.
He always has this one sentence, which is global dominance of your selected market niche, nothing less. So that's is what I'm aiming for. I want to be absolutely dominating the category globally in the selected market niche we choose. That's the level of ambition. If you then start the calculation where today our clients, which is only enterprises, and we only focus on that top tier segment of either leaders or challengers, with global distribution market segments, there is sort of like a minimum ambitions of every relationship being $1 million as a minimum. Otherwise, our curiosity and willingness to innovate with them, we probably isn't the right fit. And then you can do the calculation. I have 400 named accounts that we are right now working night and day to build relationships and commercial outcome for.
Right.
And I think within a 3-year horizon, we should be very well equipped to replicate and structure that moat for, let's say, 250 to 350 of these 400. And with a minimum annual contract of $1 million, you can do the math where others will spike and go longer at the curve.
So there's like a minimum 200, 250 million euros.
Yeah, and probably with like a good X on top of that, because as we already are seeing now, 1.5 year in, is like I will be surprised if we not go to 8 digit with clients within the next 12 months.
And what scares you about this journey?
Nothing.
Nothing.
I fucking love it. I'm kind of like, what a better place for me to be at in my life than right now. It feels like day zero.
Does it scare you to maybe move with your family? Does it? We also go back to the intellectually honesty question. Are you honest there? Like nothing scares you?
When it clicked for me after football, I promised myself to, despite friction or uncertainty, always address it with optimism and full heart.
Mm.
I've been in places early in my life, starting as a young kid, that was dark and scary.
Mm.
This is not dark and scary. This is fun. And I get a chance to prove myself, build myself, and create legacy, whatever the goal gonna be. But I'm gonna keep compounding and pounding hard until the day I don't have the resources to do it anymore. So I think it's about mindset. I've been through dark places, living at my mom's house at the age of 25 and being totally broke with debt. I'm 40 now. I've made a good portion of resources now at a completely different stage of life. But that mindset, I will never change. And so bring it on.
Bring it on.
Yeah.
Love that. And what's a conservative? What you gave me is the ambitious plan, the conservative plan.
How I'm wired, I have good people around me to start modeling what is our like ability and capability of driving it right now. What I know for certain is I want to build muscles that can take an enterprise on a duration of 12 months and not just build revenue, but bear in mind, as they are putting in 7 figures, I already now can calculate the savings, the amount of distribution they have within the organization, and the level of impact they're going to create on their categories.
Yep.
So this is for high performance redistribution of spend for a relevant enterprise that's going to be high competitive. I'm concerned and obsessed about that, much more than I am about what will be my quota, what will be my achievement to targets next month. And I think it goes back to the culture and the character I am, where I over-index input and effort over results. The results will come.
The results will come.
They always come.
If you put the input and the effort.
If you're honest about yourself and you empty your tank every day with the highest quality input you can, and you get a group to get synergies, it's a matter of time before you start to compound and outperform competition. And here we are. We're the leader, global leader within our category and we're just getting started. I don't want to be our competition. You're up against a very good group of people and a culture that you're going to have a hard time competing against. That's my belief. And I would cheer and I would cherish and I would celebrate it if over a long period of time, let's say 3 to 5 years from now, somebody can keep up with us. They've earned it. So far, I still feel like we are a fair mile ahead, and that's where I put my focus. On ourselves every day. Are we emptying the gas and the tank? And are we honest about ourselves, about our vulnerabilities, where we need to improve?
I see this kid that was running in the rain and could feel in any fiber, that he's going to be like a professional football player. Yeah. I see like the same reality that you're kind of manifesting and creating in 3 years to have like a minimum 250 or 300 million euros revenue.
What I've manifested is I'm going to be the global leader that dominate our market niche. You can even look at the trophy. I've made a true copy of the Champions League trophy, and I'm looking at it every day when I go into my office. This is the manifestation that I'm going to win Champions League every year in this industry eventually. And we're just getting there.
Wonderful. And the last question to everyone watching who started from modest means, maybe no, Stanford or Harvard, no connections, and wants to build something that matters. What's your message to them?
Look inwards. Be honest about yourself. Build mental durability and muscles to over-index everyday input and trust that will translate to outcomes eventually in the process. Be incredibly impatient with your input and honest. And be very patient with outcomes.
Input, and effort.
Always over-index that.
Casper, thank you very much for taking the time. This was an absolute pleasure.
My pleasure. Appreciate it.